So here we're going to talk about database administration. Specifically, I'm going to be covering what a database is. And within it, I'm going to be telling you about database additions, the Oracle database additions, and the Oracle installation prerequisites, basically what it takes to install Oracle. I'm going to then install Oracle and show you and walk you through the installation components. I'm going to then tell you about SQL Plus and what that is, and then I'm going to talk to you about SQL. And of course, how to separate SQL Plus commands from SQL commands. If you are familiar with other systems, or you're familiar with SQL a little bit, Oracle SQL and SQL Plus really are different pieces and different animals. They're not the same thing as you might imagine. So I'm going to introduce those to you and clarify it for you. One of the major objectives here is to get you to feel very comfortable moving around and installing and manipulating and administering the Oracle environment. So first of all, I want to share with you what a database is, if you're not already familiar with it. Very simply put, database allows you to store data in an organized manner so that it can be retrieved quickly. Let me elaborate on that. First of all, way back in the day, and I don't really know how far back in the day really this is, before my time, if you were really dealing with data that you were basically hand entering it in or putting it on a piece of paper or something, how are you supposed to gather that information and actually achieve some level of comfort in what you're getting, and if you're grabbing everything? How are you supposed to do analysis, even though people did? But how are you supposed to do effective analysis? How are you supposed to deal with, especially, large amounts of data? Without a database, it would be very, very hard. I know it works, and it could work, but it would be very difficult, and it would take teams of people to assemble data that now takes one person, maybe, sometimes not even that, depending on how automated your system is. And any type of data can be stored, whether it's text, or it's XML, or it's video, or it's audio, or it's pictures, or really anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You can store it right within a database structure. And as I said, you can hold large amounts of data. Let me elaborate on the large amounts of data. To give you an example, let's say you are working for a communication company, a large multinational communication company. And let's say that your communication company has 5 million customers. Yes, yes, it's possible, very easily possible. If you take a look at your phone company, your mobile phone company, that probably easily has 5 million customers if you're thinking national or global. 5 million customers, let's say each of them make or receive 10 calls a day, right? 5 million times 10 calls a day equals what? 50 million transactions, essentially, correct? 50 million transactions times 7 days, that's 350 million transactions, times a month, or really 4 approximately, that's 1.4 billion transactions. Wow! Isn't that fast? Multiply that by a year, multiply that by 10 years, doesn't really matter, however you want to look at it. That's really the scale that I'm talking about when I really say large amounts of data. If you wanted to figure out and do analysis, if your organization, your communication company, wanted to do or conduct analysis on what where your phone calls are being made, do analysis on when they're being made and how long each call is and things of that nature, how would you gather up that information on paper and determine and do some proper statistical analysis? It would be hard. It can be done, but it would be hard. It would take days. How do you put together 1.4 billion transactions or 1.4 billion phone calls in a single month and conduct analysis on where those calls are coming from and where they're going and how long each call is and how many calls are dropped and how many calls were made again and who knows what else? So large amounts of data. And a database generally stores information in rows and columns. Not always, but it can store information in rows and column format. You have rows of data that contain multiple columns. A name is a column, city is a column, state is a column. Name, city, and state combined make up a row of data for a given, let's say, customer. Okay, so just to give you an example. Now, if you look here, I've got myself a little bit of comparison here of the Oracle editions. Oracle editions in the 11G world. Here's a key feature summary. And up here, I've got myself the different editions of Oracle. Now, here's the Express edition in the 10G universe, not 11G, but in the 10G universe. Now, the Express edition is nothing more than like a personal edition. It means that only you are able to use it and you're playing with it and testing it. And it doesn't really require, as you can see, a lot of resources, 1 processor, a gig of RAM, and 4 gig for the database size. And it's available for Windows and Linux environments, as you can see right over here. However, it's not supported on the Unix or 64-bit world. That's 10G Express Edition. In an enterprise, you would not use this Express Edition because of its many limitations. In the corporation or an enterprise universe, 4 gig of database size is really, well, useless in the big scheme of things. As the example that I gave you of data that has 1.4 billion rows, you're not going to be able to manipulate that and capture a lot of information with only 4 gig maximum database size. However, the Express Edition allows you to work with it and test it and play with the database environment within your own personal computer, if you will. Then there is the Standard Edition 1, which allows for up to 2 processor sockets. However much RAM the operating system allows is the amount of RAM that the database will take, and there's no limit to the database size, which is really what you need. And the Standard Edition 1 supports all of these operating environments, as do the other editions. However, the Standard Edition 1 only supports 2 processor sockets, whereas the Standard Edition, not Standard Edition 1, but the Standard Edition supports 4 sockets, which means more processors. Other than that, the RAM and the database size requirements and the supported operating systems are the same. The Enterprise Edition, which is what many larger organizations have, does not have a limit to the number of processors that you have, the number of processor sockets that you have. And there is no limit to the RAM or the database size or the operating systems that it supports. So that's a pretty big deal in the Enterprise Edition. Many of the medium-sized organizations may choose to have the Standard Edition and not the Enterprise. There is a gigantic price difference in licensing between the two. I don't know what that is, but it's going to differ. It's going to be different depending on your organization and your history with Oracle. You may get custom pricing depending on how large your organization is and how long you've been working with Oracle and how many different places in your organization Oracle is deployed. One other thing that I want to share with you here is the hardware requirements. Okay, there's the hardware component requirements for Windows 32-bit. And for the amount of RAM, you need a minimum of 1 gig of RAM. Okay. Virtual memory, you want double the amount of RAM allocated to the virtual memory. You need 4.76 gig of disk space available. You need 550 megahertz processor minimum. If you're going to be installing it on Windows Vista, and you won't for an enterprise, you're going to need at least 800 megahertz. This is usually not common. Then you have 256 colors for the video adapter. That's on a 32-bit system. On a 64-bit system, you need 1 gig of RAM also, double the RAM as your virtual memory. Processor, you need AMD 64 or the Intel Extended Memory EMT EM64T. It still supports 256 colors. And on a 32-bit system for Windows, it will support, you need to have, as far as installation of the amount of disk space that it requires, you need 3.1 meg of disk space. You need 3.1 meg of disk space for Oracle Home. You need 200 meg of temporary space. You need 2.96 gig for Oracle Home. You need 1.6 for database files. That's how you come up with 4.76 gig. Both for the basic and the advanced installation. All editions require this much. So that's just some of the things associated with basic Oracle installation requirements and the database editions. So a little bit about that. We're going to be getting into more about Oracle and its installation and the components as we progress. Really glad you're here.